The moment I walked through my parents' front door, I saw it. The nail, where my service portrait used to hang, that professional military photo taken the day I commissioned as an officer. There was nothing. Just a clean rectangle of unfaded wall, mocking me in the afternoon sunlight. My throat tightened. No one mentioned it during dinner. Not my mother, not my father, not my older brother James. We all pretended the empty space didn't exist, the way families pretend when something is deliberately broken. My name is Allison Turner, and I'm about to tell you how my parents tried to erase me. Halfway through the pot roast, my father slid a thick folder across the table toward me. His movements were too casual, too rehearsed. "We need to clear something up," he said. Inside were legal documents, estate paperwork, numbers highlighted in neon yellow like they were defusing a bomb. According to a recent review, my military service benefits disqualified me from inheriting a portion of my grandfather's estate. $300,000. Gone. Just like that. I pointed out the error calmly. This was clearly a mistake. Military service didn't disqualify anyone from inheritance. That wasn't how the law worked. My mother smiled. That thin, practiced smile I'd learned to fear as a child. "Well," she said softly, "if you really served the way you claim, proving it shouldn't be hard." That word hung in the air between us. Claim. As if 4 years of my life, the sleepless nights, the combat deployments, the decisions that haunted me were just a story I'd made up. As if my sacrifice was fiction. I set down my fork. "I have every record," I said quietly. "Of course," my mother said. "Everyone does." I knew then. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a genuine mistake someone could fix with paperwork. This was a setup. And I understood my parents were about to make the biggest mistake of their lives. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday. My parents had filed a formal petition with the court claiming I had misrepresented my military service for financial gain. They were contesting the inheritance. They were calling me a liar, under their names, under oath. Attached were affidavits from relatives I barely spoke to anymore. Carefully worded statements, vague accusations. My uncle claimed he remembered my farewell dinner before deployment. My aunt said she had always wondered about the inconsistencies in my stories. My cousin documented strange details about my service that never quite added up. I read the documents 3 times, then I read them again. These weren't people who were confused. These weren't relatives trying to help with a paperwork error. These were organized, coordinated, and completely confident they would win. I called my brother James. No answer. I called my mother. Straight to voicemail. That silence hurt worse than any accusation. By sunset, I was sitting across from my attorney, Marcus, in his office. He was older, sharp, with gray in his beard and the kind of calm that came from winning cases people thought were impossible. He read the petition slowly, carefully. When he looked up at me, there was something dangerous in his eyes. "They're very confident," he said. "Yes," I replied. "They are." "Do you know why?" he asked. I shook my head. "Because they think you'll panic. They think you'll rush to defend yourself emotionally. They think you'll break down and confess to something you didn't do, just to make the pain stop." He was right. That's what they expected. But I had already decided something different. "What if we didn't defend?" I asked quietly. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Explain," he said. "What if we attack their timeline instead?" I didn't respond to the petition immediately. That decision unsettled them. I knew it did because my aunt called 2 days later, pretending to check in. Her questions were desperate and clumsy. "Honey, are you okay? Are you getting help with this legal thing? Your mother is very worried." I answered politely. Gave her nothing. Instead, I requested certified copies of my service records directly from the military archives. I logged every phone call, every email, every timestamp. I didn't rush. Anyone rushing creates mistakes. I simply waited and watched. At night, I replayed my parents' faces at the dinner table. The confidence, the absolute certainty. They believed they controlled the narrative. What they didn't understand was that every legal move they made forced them to commit to a specific version of events. And once lies are locked into court documents, once they're sworn under oath, they can't bend anymore. They harden like concrete, and concrete eventually cracks. One affidavit stopped me cold. My uncle, my father's older brother, claimed he attended my farewell dinner the night before my first deployment overseas. He described it vividly. The restaurant, the people who were there, what I was supposedly wearing, even what wine we drank. There was just one problem. On the exact date he listed, I was already overseas. I had flight logs from that day, military base entry records, time-stamped photographs I'd taken on my phone, dated 2,847 miles away from that restaurant. Not just wrong, impossible. I printed everything, organized it into a folder labeled simply, contradictions, because one mistake can be explained as confusion. But patterns are evidence. 2 weeks before the court date, the whispers started. I felt them even though no one said anything to my face. Messages from distant cousins stopped coming. A wedding invitation mysteriously got lost. People I'd known my entire life suddenly had nothing to say to me. My mother had always been a master of soft damage, invisible cuts, reputation destruction without leaving fingerprints. But I let it happen. Because reputation destruction creates witnesses. People remember when a story spreads too fast. When everyone in a town suddenly hears the same accusation from different sources, they wonder how that happened. They start asking questions. Meanwhile, Marcus filed a single motion, not aggressive, not emotional, just procedure. He requested all supporting documents tied to the affidavits. That's when everything changed. My father called me for the first time in 3 months. "You don't need to make this ugly," he said. His voice was shaking. I almost laughed. "It's already ugly," I said calmly. "You just don't realize who it's ugly for yet." I hung up. When Discovery opened, their confidence shattered. Emails surfaced. Draft emails. Messages between relatives coordinating language. Phrases my mother used appeared in 3 separate affidavits nearly word for word. Always wondered about inconsistencies. Strange details that never quite added up. The same language. Different people. Different documents. Coincidence doesn't repeat itself that precisely. My attorney sat across from me reviewing the evidence. His expression didn't change, but I saw it. He had found something explosive. "This," he said, pointing to a draft email, "is your mother explaining to your uncle exactly what he should say in his affidavit. It's practically a script." I stared at the words on the screen. My mother, the woman who raised me, had literally written her lies into someone else's mouth. "What does this mean?" I asked. "It means," Marcus said, "they didn't just lie. They coordinated the lies. They planned them. They put them in writing." He looked at me over his glasses. "That's not a mistake anymore, Allison. That's conspiracy." The morning of the hearing, I arrived alone. No family support, no friends, just me. I wore my dress uniform. Not the service dress I usually wore to events, but the formal uniform from my last deployment. The ribbons on my chest told the story that words couldn't. Commendations, recognition, proof. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I expected, harder, cold. My parents sat at the other table with their attorney. My mother wore a soft blue blazer, the kind that made her look vulnerable and wronged. My father looked confident, almost smug. I noticed how my mother's eyes widened when she saw my uniform. For just a moment, her performance cracked. They still thought this was about who told the better story, who could sound more believable, who could manipulate the judge's emotions better. They didn't understand yet. This wasn't about words anymore. This was about evidence. The judge entered, and everything stopped. He was older, maybe mid-60s. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were sharp. He had read every document. He knew what was coming. The judge looked at my uniform for a long moment. Then he looked at my parents. I watched understanding dawn on him. Not judgment, not yet. Just understanding that what he was about to witness was a family in the process of destroying itself with lies. My father testified first, calm, smooth, emotional when needed. He described my fabrication like a disappointed father, not like someone making a serious accusation. "She's always been dramatic," he said. "We thought maybe she was confused." My mother followed. Tears, carefully chosen words. "We just want the truth," she said. I felt clarity wash over me. They weren't my parents anymore. They were witnesses to their own destruction. The judge looked at me. "Miss Turner, you may respond." I stood slowly, didn't rush, let silence fill the courtroom. Then I said 3 words, "Not at this time." I sat back down. The room went absolutely still. My father's jaw clenched. My mother's tears stopped instantly. They expected me to fight, to defend myself emotionally. Instead, I gave them nothing. The judge's eyebrow raised slightly. He understood what I was doing. Marcus stood and presented the evidence methodically. He showed the judge my service records, first certified, unbroken chain of custody, dates, locations, commendations. Then he showed the emails, my mother's drafts, the language she had written for relatives to use in their affidavits. The judge flipped through the pages slowly, too slowly. These emails, he said, where did they come from? No answer. They're from your email account, Mrs. Turner. You wrote them. My mother's face went white. Then came the affidavit my uncle had written, the one describing my farewell dinner. Marcus read it aloud. The description, the date, the specific details about what I supposedly wore. The defendant was wearing a navy dress, Marcus read. She seemed melancholy about the deployment. Then he presented the evidence. Military flight records showing I was deployed on that exact date. Base entry logs with my signature. Photographs I'd taken overseas, dated 2 days before the supposed farewell dinner. Time stamped, geolocked, impossible to fake. The judge looked at my uncle, who was sitting in the gallery, his face turning red. Mr. Harrison, the judge said quietly, how do you explain being at a dinner in your home state when she was physically located nearly 3,000 miles away? My uncle said nothing. He couldn't, because there was no explanation. He had committed to an event that was physically impossible. The judge set down the documents. This court does not take false testimony lightly, he said. My father tried to interrupt. The judge raised a hand without looking at him. You will remain silent, Mr. Turner. I watched my father's face change. The confidence crumbled completely. He suddenly understood fully that they had lost. My mother gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles turned white. The judge addressed them directly. You filed a petition based on false statements. You coordinated those statements among family members. You put them under oath. And you did all of this. He paused, in pursuit of a financial dispute. He leaned forward slightly. That is contempt of court. The word fell like a hammer. Not against me, against them. The room seemed smaller after he said it. The judge dismissed the petition with prejudice. He referred the affidavits to the district attorney for review regarding perjury charges. He awarded me my inheritance plus legal fees. But the part that mattered, the part that will stay with them forever, was when he said this. Miss Turner's service record is clear and uncontested. Her integrity in this proceeding has been exemplary. Her family's attempt to destroy her reputation based on coordinated fabrications will result in appropriate legal consequences. He looked directly at my parents. This court finds in favor of the defendant. Completely. My mother cried openly now. Real tears. Real panic. Too late. No one looked at my parents as they left the courtroom. Not the way they expected to be looked at. My mother's attorney was already on his phone, probably calling his insurance company. My father walked with his head down, his confidence completely shattered. The man who had walked into that courtroom so certain of victory was now a person who understood fully the magnitude of what he had done. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, clear, not victorious. I didn't feel triumph or the sweet rush of revenge. What I felt was something quieter and more permanent. Relief. The kind of relief that comes from knowing the truth is locked in the permanent record, that no amount of soft damage could touch it anymore. My name was restored, officially, publicly, on the legal record forever. The perjury investigation into my parents' affidavits proceeded independently, handled by authorities now. Marcus shook my hand outside the courthouse. You played that perfectly, he said. That silence told the judge everything. I nodded. I felt something closer to sad than proud. My family had tried to destroy me. They had succeeded in destroying themselves instead. Months later, I stood in a new apartment, hanging a new service portrait on the wall. The same photograph, the same moment from my commissioning day, permanent. This time, I hung it where I could see it every morning, not to prove anything to anyone, just to remind myself that I was real, that my service was real, that none of the lies changed what I had actually done. My parents never called. No apologies, no explanations. My brother James eventually sent a text asking if we could talk. I stared at that message for a long time, then deleted it. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Some things end cleanly when exposed. When the lie is documented in court, when the evidence is permanent, when a judge has officially declared that one person told the truth and the other committed perjury. I understood then what real victory meant. It wasn't about making them suffer. Pain was inevitable. Real victory was about making myself untouchable, legally, officially, in ways that mattered. My name was cleared. My service was validated. My character was defended not by my own words, but by the overwhelming weight of evidence and the authority of a court of law. They tried to erase me. Instead, they documented me, and the truth did what it always does. It waited. It was patient. And when the moment came, it was absolute. Some truths don't need to be defended. They just need to be patient.